actually currently still a Coast Guard reservist, which is actually kind of controversial that I'm here. And I'll get into that later, but I'm 28 now, and when I was 19, I was sexually assaulted by someone I was in training with. And I had joined the Coast Guard to follow in my father's footsteps, make him proud. And I was really gung-ho. I loved it. I was going to be a medic, and it was a year later that I went to this training installation where they train everyone in their different jobs. And I met this guy, and you know, it was a date, and it turned into a date rape situation. I was very young and naive in what my rights were. What is instilled in everyone in training installations is that underage drinking is not tolerated. So I thought that I would be in trouble, and it was a situation where there was alcohol. So in doing so, I kept my mouth shut and didn't say anything, and kind of bared the burden on my own. And it wasn't until I went to college a year later where I started taking some women's studies courses and actually learning about these things, where I became very confident in the fact that I needed to talk about this and get some help. Because just like it's been said through this film and these women up here, it's not talked about at all. And there are signs and posters, you know, that there's zero tolerance and find a buddy and all these ridiculous things, just like the film says. And it's not really talked about on an individual basis. So I saw these posters and I wasn't hearing about it. So I ended up talking to someone when I was on my 2 weeks active duty, and just like the Congresswoman said, these victim advocates who are not really trained, I told him, and I thought that he would be someone that would help me. And in coming forward with my story, he ended up not knowing how to help me. He didn't give me the contacts that I needed to get help, someone who really could guide me through the process. Long story short, it was 5 years later after the incident that it was reported, and I went through an initial, investigation. I went through an initial court proceeding in the Coast Guard called it Article 34. I don't remember the actual title, where the initial evidence is presented, and I had to sit in front of my perpetrator and see him for the first time. During that process, actually, I ran into him in the hallway, so that's how greatly they had that set up. And that was very traumatic. Long story short, I didn't get any physical evidence, and you know, when I was 19, I didn't get a rape kit done or anything, but they, at the end, ended up saying that they believed that this happened, but they didn't have any evidence to move forward. So my story is kind of different because I ended up going inactive for a while because of the trauma and all the psychological issues that I was going through because of the investigation. I actually had to come back into the Coast Guard Reserves because I had lost my job and I was desperate for money, so I went back into the reserves. And still to this day, I remain an E4 in the Coast Guard after 10 years, which, if any of you know anything about the pay scale, is terrible. Well, it's embarrassing to say the least, but that's just, if people do end up staying in the military, it is damaging to their careers. And I'm happy to think that I'm a bright individual, I have a college degree. I could be an officer if I wanted to, but I am planning on working the end of my enlistment this coming June because I can't stand it anymore. So I'm here tonight because I saw this documentary in August, and I met Jennifer, and I happen to work, I've done work in the past with advocacy groups just as a civilian, and this film is the first time I'd ever heard of another Coast Guard woman going through this stuff. So this is a very powerful film, and it's doing so much. So